Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Dustin Schutte, temporarily filling in for host Jim Quill. Join us mobily, but joining us right now is the voice of the Indianapolis Colts, Matt Taylor, who is fresh off of a brief staycation, and amping up for the season. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good, Dustin. What's going on, man? Good to see you.
Hey, man, I have got the golf clubs out. I've played a couple rounds, so I know you're not a big golf guy, but I cannot complain right now.
You know what? I actually went to the driving range last week with my pops. He's I don't know if he's a scratch golfer or not, but he's probably pretty close. So he came out and he got me scramble ready for probably next summer because I get invited to play in like seven scrambles a year, and I always have to get creative and like trying to help out in different ways other than playing. So it's like, you know what? I just need to bite the bullet. And I need to be scramble ready here. You know, I told him, I said, I just need to, I don't need to hit bad shots, but I just need to tee off, hit like a fairway iron, and then chip and putt. And I got the chip and putt down okay, pretty good. But yeah, we were out there for probably like an hour and a half. We hit probably 250 balls, and out of 250 shots, Dustin, I probably hit like 8 good ones. And I'm thinking, why do people play this game? Why do people subject themselves to this? I don't understand it. But I'm obviously being facetious. So you hit 1 or 2 good shots, and like it strikes a chord throughout your entire body, right? So I mean, you get why people come back after they have 1 good round or so. So no, I just need to get scramble ready and be able to, you know, sort of hold my own in a foursome out there when the time comes.
Well, the nice thing about a scramble too is if you are not playing well, then you've got 3 other guys that can cover you up. So and to your point about hitting 8 good shots out of 250, I mean, I've been playing since I was 10 years old, and I maybe hit 9 or 10 good shots that I feel good about each round. It's just It's incredibly frustrating. So I got into the hobby, and a lot of times I regret getting into it because the other thing is it's not cheap either. So a lot of times you're paying $50 to go out there and get really frustrated, but it keeps drawing me back for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, if I want to get frustrated, I can just sit at home and watch the Cincinnati Reds for free. That's great.
Did you finish that game, by the way, last night? Because we were talking about that too. They had the 3-run, had a 4-0 lead, and then blew it in extra innings. Had a chance to potentially win the series against the Yankees.
Right. Yeah. No, I did not. No, the Reds have not been appointment viewing for me really since tax day, and probably long before then too. To be honest with you, I mean, normally the Reds are. I mean, they've had some good teams sprinkled in, in the last 2 decades or so. But, I'm used to sort of checking out on the Reds this time of year, right before training camp with the Colts, as that begins to ramp up. But yeah, there's been times where it's, Labor Day or the 4th of July or Father's Day. This year, the Reds were eliminated in my mind by Easter, and that's never a good thing in terms of like points on the calendar where you're just done by. But that's where they are this year for me. But hopefully they figure it out. I don't know what the plan is. I don't think there is a plan right now other than just shedding payroll and starting over financially, which is incredibly frustrating. But hey, it's small market baseball. You just see teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Red Sox just keep doing what they do, and that's just because the dough keeps flying in. But I know we're not here to talk about that, so I digress.
Well, Jim's back and joining us from the car. So,
I was enjoying the Reds talk, just adding to my misery. Just after last night, I was like, okay, but you can't expect them to win a series with the Dodgers, the Yankees, even though they had it within their grasp. But it is what it is. At least we got the Colts to talk about, right?
That's right. Let's roll.
A lot of positive things in that way with the Matt Ryan deal, but everything just keeps going in a positive direction, it seems, for the Colts. The news is all positive. It seems like everyone has a positive frame of mind from the player standpoint. They like what's going on.
I think Jim's cutting out. So to Jim's point, I think one of the things that you read about, Matt, at this time of year is, the fact that there's a lot of excitement about the Colts. I've seen Jonathan Taylor be ranked as one of the top 3 running backs in the NFL. There's some that say Matt Ryan could potentially be an MVP candidate. Just how excited are you, and how excited is this team to get back on the field, considering kind of the disappointment that the way last season ended?
Yeah, it's been a really long offseason, and it's been up and down in terms of, psychology, I think, within the fan base, because at the beginning of the offseason, you still have the immediate disappointment of missing the playoffs and what the heck happened in Jacksonville and how did we lose these 2 games, and we were a 15-point favorite in week 18 and all of those things, and people want changes and they demand this guy go, and we need to bring in these types of players and make these kinds of trades and things like that. But what I've been most impressed with this offseason by the Colts is just patience and updating the roster in an incredibly methodical way. Between free agency and trades in the draft, they've really done a really good job of addressing the top end of the roster with really top end talent, to be honest with you. And I've said this over and over, marquee players at marquee positions. They've always had good depth. They've always had a solid roster. That's why they've been really good on special teams. But now they've added top end players that can directly impact the game. More of those types of guys on this team, guys like Matt Ryan, Stephon Gilmore, Yannick Ngakoue. And then in the draft, you bring in players like Bernard Ryman at left tackle, who's in a position to possibly start as a rookie. We'll see how that goes. But Alec Pierce at wide receiver, Jelani Woods at tight end. These are playmakers. These are guys that are going to impact the game. And, there's nothing against, guys that fill out the back end of the roster. They need players, special teams guys. They need solid depth at linebacker. They need solid depth at safety, right? That's obvious. Every team needs that. But what the Colts needed to take themselves from one realm to the next out because of that. And I just love the fact that the AFC South portion of their schedule happened so early. I love that because it just brings a sense of urgency to this team, sort of an edge that they've needed all off season. Not that they weren't going to have it to begin with because of the way last season ended, but I love the fact that, hey, you're playing 5 of your first 7 games against the AFC South, and you're going to need that chip on your shoulder. You're going to need that edge about you to begin the season. Otherwise, hey, by Halloween, you could be in a bad spot. So it sort of just adds motivation and fuel to this team in terms of their preparation. And it started in the offseason workout program. It carries on now, and then obviously it'll be used as, focus and motivation once training camp starts in 2 weeks.
One of the things, kind of talking about the roster management and the way this team kind of upgraded, one of the things that stood out to me, Matt, and I think that this is probably a bigger deal than what people are giving the Colts credit. When Khari Willis made the decision to step away to retire, the Colts, prior to that, really didn't sit around. They drafted Nick Cross. They brought in some veteran safeties like Armani Watts and Rodney McLeod. And to me, that's just – I feel like there's some organizations out there, maybe not a lot, that might have just sat on their hands and said, you know what, we're going to just hope this guy or try to talk this guy into coming back for at least one more year to give us some time. Instead, the Colts were very active. I don't know what that whole situation, how much knowledge they had, but they covered their bases. And to me, that just speaks to how well run this organization is and has been for a long time.
Oh, without question. The Colts, I don't know if they had a inclination. I'm sure there was some sort of there were some conversations had between Khari Willis and ownership or at least Chris Ballard in the offseason. I don't think that the Colts would completely steer away from their principles in terms of how they go about acquiring players and sticking to their board in the draft. I think they just love Nick Cross and his abilities in terms of what he was able to do and what he's able to offer coming out of Maryland, because they moved up high in the draft. They moved back into the third round to pick him up, and he was a guy they thought might be available to draft in the second round out of Maryland. But he's got the total package when you watch his tape. I mean, he's got the physical tools. He loves to tackle. He's strong in the box. He's rangy. He's instinctual. He's smart. And he's just a really, really solid player, but he's coming out of the draft early, and he's not even 21 years old yet. He's not going to turn 21 until September. So if he goes to Ale Emporium in Indianapolis and tries to order a beer, he's going to get shut up, right? And then you have the opposite of that in terms of Rodney McLeod. Rodney McLeod has started 123 games in his NFL career, has played 10 years in the league, just oozing with, savviness and, just experience. So I think it just boils down to what do the Colts want here in terms of starting at safety to begin the season, a guy that's got all kinds of wisdom, and you're going to be playing those division games out of the gate early. And those are going to matter. And, the franchise has had a hard time getting off to good starts in the last couple of years. So do you want a guy that has experience, or is it baptism by fire with a guy like Rodney McLeod, who's probably going to be the long-term answer at safety going forward? So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays itself out in training camp between those two guys fighting for one of those starting safety positions.
Matt, when does training camp start?
Training camp starts on July 27th. So I believe that is, what's today? The 13th?
We're 2 weeks. Yeah, we're 2 weeks away or so.
Yeah, right around 2 weeks away. So, yeah, there's 16 days of practice at Grand Park in Westfield, 16 sessions that are open to the public. And again, I can't stress this enough. I mean, what the Colts do, what they continue to do in terms of getting away, moving training camp off-site, having it accessible to fans. Most teams just aren't doing that anymore. And most teams are, closed doors, behind the scenes, and they have it at their team facility, and they have limited access to fans. The Colts are just the complete opposite of that. So 16 practices at Grand Park. They're free, but you do have to have a ticket. You can download your ticket online for all the details on camp, the practice dates, the times, everything. It's all available. Colts.com/camp. There you can download the free ticket, and it's just really, really cool and first class the way the Colts do it in terms of letting people see this team come together before the season. And it's a great opportunity for fans to see the club and to see their favorite players that don't get a chance to go to Lucas Oil Stadium to watch games.
Matt, to piggyback off that, Jim Irsay, I think, goes above and beyond. He loves the Indianapolis community. And I hear from so many people about they can't believe, they're like, wow, Indianapolis freaking loves the Colts. And I'm like, yeah, they do. And that would be understandable if the Colts had been in Indianapolis since the advent of the Colts. But they've been here since '84. It's like that they were born here. But the affection for the Colts is probably just next to that of Indiana basketball.
Right.
Not statewide, but in Indianapolis, it's strong.
And it didn't used to be that way. And I mean, I'm old enough to understand that. And I mean, when I was a kid, the Colts weren't really relevant until 1995, with Jim Harbaugh and Captain Comeback and that unexpected run to the AFC Championship game. And, Cordell Stewart running out of bounds and the Aaron Bailey catch, the Hail Mary that almost was made, to send the Colts to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's really what helped captivate the heart of the city, with the Colts in mind. And then obviously Peyton came, and then that changed everything. And then Lucas Oil Stadium was built. And then, I mean, I just go back to, when Peyton Manning had his statue unveiled at Lucas Oil Stadium, and David Letterman was speaking before that. And, he said that Peyton Manning and the Colts have literally changed the skyline of Indianapolis. And that is so true. I mean, without the Colts, I mean, obviously we don't get a Super Bowl. Some of these conventions aren't coming to town. Final Fours probably aren't coming to town anymore. No, I mean, the Colts are obviously, I say this objectively, I mean, they are the biggest deal in town in terms of sports attention. And it didn't used to be that way. It used to be Indy 500. It used to be IU basketball. It used to be the Pacers. And now the Colts are they're top dog. And it's just, I mean, it's represented by everything that we do. It's 365 conversations on websites and podcasts and streams and sports radio, free agency. It's draft. I mean, people want to know what's going on with the NFL and the Colts 24/7, and it didn't used to be like that.
And
Matt Taylor is the voice of them. Go ahead, Dustin.
I was just going to say it's had an incredible trickle down effect. I mean, you think there have been some really good Notre Dame teams. Obviously, there have been some good Purdue teams, and Indiana really hasn't been in the football realm until recently. But the Colts were able to. I mean, I remember going as a kid to high school basketball games and the gymnasiums being sold out, and obviously that's still some parts of the state. But now I see that on Friday nights for football games. And I think that the Colts and the success and Peyton Manning and everything you just talked about, Matt, they had a profound impact on football in the state of Indiana, not just Indianapolis, but I think from north to south and east to west, it made football a bigger deal in a state where, as you mentioned, it was previously racing, the Indy 500, and basketball.
Well, I mean, how many 23, 22-year-olds do you guys know right now with the name of Peyton? That was a huge girls too. Yeah, boys and girls. You're exactly right. No, I mean, I did high school football for years, and you know, it was astonishing to me to see the sophistication of plays, of schematics, of execution with these kids compared to, quite frankly, when I played high school football. I played high school football in the early 2000s, and then to call games now or in the mid 2010s, I mean, you got the spread, you've got, silent counts, and just all of these things that teams are doing or were doing that weren't even around when I was in high school football. And I think it just speaks to, the success of the Colts at the highest of levels, in this city, in this market. And it just sort of had a trickle down effect in terms of popularity and what kids, thought were capable in terms of execution on the field. So it just had a profound effect on the game, the popularity, and, how people started taking it seriously, more serious anyways. High school basketball has always been, probably it's still probably the leader in the state in terms of, popularity and, what kids want to do. But I tell you what, football is just right there. I don't know if it's on the same level as an Ohio or a Texas, but Indiana football has produced some really, really fine players the last, 2 decades or so. And I think the Colts have had a really, really big part in that because of their success and the exposure they've put they've allowed the game to have on young people.
You hear him every Sunday, Matt Taylor, the voice of the Indianapolis Colts, and we are fortunate to have you, my brother. I hope you go out and have a great day and a great weekend with the family.
You got it, man. That's the plan. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Matt Taylor from Indianapolis Colts joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.